Hey guys, it's Rodimus Primal. I am back with another video, and today I am bringing you guys my review for the very first Godzilla movie I ever saw. And that is King Kong versus Godzilla. So I've got a lot to talk about, so sit back, relax, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's... Godzilla's coming! King Kong vs. Godzilla is probably one of the most famous kaiju films for many reasons. Bringing these two giants together to battle was one of the most epic crossovers ever. I first saw this film on a TV broadcast in the 1980s. My dad, who was already a big sci-fi nut and was an extra in the 1976 remake of King Kong, was watching it and I was mesmerized. There was Godzilla standing over a cliff, blasting his atomic breath at King Kong, who could do nothing more but throw rocks at his opponent. It was there a new kaiju fan was born. While some might make fun of the special effects, kid me did not care. It looked awesome, and all I wanted to see was the two monsters fight. The making of this movie has an interesting history, to say the least. Willis O'Brien, the animator for the original King Kong in 1933, came up with the idea of King Kong vs. Frankenstein. After pitching it to Toho, they changed out Frankenstein for Godzilla, whom they wanted to bring back after he was buried in ice at the end of Godzilla raids again. This would be the first time the two monsters would be seen in color. While there's been books, movies, and TV shows that have stated that he's green,
he's mean, green, and making the New York scene.
Godzilla is really more of a charcoal gray, which actually falls in line better with his nuclear origins. His costume is chunkier than his previous appearances, giving him an almost comical look that is a favorite among some Godzilla fans. This film also establishes that his atomic breath is blue. Godzilla's roar was given a higher pitch in contrast to the original. King Kong, on the other hand, was brought up to Godzilla's size of 50 meters, or 167 feet tall. His costume was a terrible-looking gorilla suit, and at times they used arm extensions trying to bring him closer to an actual gorilla. This simply didn't work, and most of the time King Kong is seen without them. They also changed his island from Skull Island to Pharaoh Island, so think of this King Kong as being different than his Universal counterpart. Godzilla first appears when an American submarine, the Seahawk, crashes into the iceberg the monster was buried in, freeing Godzilla from the ice. He then, of course, begins his rampage. When King Kong first shows up, he battles with a giant octopus attacking the village. The special effects artists actually used 4 different live octopuses on set with miniatures. In fact, one of them became special effects director E.G. Tsuburaya's dinner after filming. The other 3 they let back into the wild. We eventually learn that King Kong is strengthened by electricity, and Godzilla is weakened by high voltage. This was a leftover from the whole Frankenstein thing, especially considering that Godzilla was able to smash through them in the original movie. I do have an in-universe theory that I will talk about in a future video. The battle between the two giants, for the most part, is a stalemate, even though King Kong does gain strength from lightning. Eat your vegetables. Eventually, the two beasts end up crashing into the ocean, with King Kong emerging and swimming back home. Now, if you couldn't tell by this point, I really love this film, but I am not that much of a big fan of the US version. I really love the Japanese version, which I have here on DVD. But I recently found out that the Japanese version that I have has inaccurate subtitles, but the movie is still watchable, and I prefer the Japanese version over the US version like 100-fold. And I watch both back to back. The US version added UN broadcasts to help explain to us dumb Americans what was going on in Japan, even going so far as to act like this is the first time they've ever seen Godzilla, and they state that Godzilla is a cross between a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Stegosaurus. They also cut a lot of scenes that make the human story make more sense, and the events were sometimes in a different order, which leads to a lot of confusion. The biggest problem I have with the American version is the lack of Akira Ifukube's Godzilla theme, which is played frequently in the Japanese version. They also had a theme for King Kong that was changed too. All of the music in the US version was ripped from Universal's stock music from other movies. The only song from the original film that is still used in the US version is the island natives' chant that put Kong to sleep. The last thing I want to talk about is the ending. Back when I was a kid, I remember taking the Godzilla book out of the library, and it blatantly stated that Godzilla won in the Japanese version. Well, I've got news for you. It's not true. It turns out that this rumor was started by the magazine Famous Monsters in Filmland. However, in reality, the ending is almost the same. In the US version, the UN broadcaster mentions that King Kong is headed back home, and it says, "The end," and then King Kong's roar is heard. In the Japanese version, while they mention that King Kong is headed back home, they also speculate that Godzilla is probably still alive. When the Japanese symbol for the end arrives on screen, we hear Godzilla's roar, followed by King Kong's roar. So I hope that clears up the confusion that has circled around this movie for so many years. At the end of the day, this is still a great movie to watch. The special effects might not hold up, and you might only be able to find the US version available today, and I still recommend it to any fan of giant monsters. Next year we'll finally have a remake, and I hope it lives up to its namesake. I also hope that the original Japanese version will get released on Blu-ray outside of Japan with accurate English subtitles. But what do you think? Have you seen this movie, and are you a fan of either monster? Is this one of your favorites, or are there others? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you like this video, be sure to thumbs up and subscribe. I have many more videos like this coming soon, so stay tuned. And as always, until next time, till all are one.